Hey everyone, welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast. This show is about helping you grow as a coach by standing on the shoulders of giants. Each show, you get a different mentor in your ear. The early motivations, the successes, the failures, the tools, the tricks, and the insight into where the industry is going. All of it so you can make your own dent in the world. Remember, success leaves clues. Now, without further ado, on to the show.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to another episode of the Coach Catalyst podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Whitwer. On today's episode, I have my good friend come back for another episode. Her name is Jennifer Broxterman. So if you didn't hear Jen's first talk, she's in episode 1 through 5, and we talked through Jen's entire story, her backstory, the businesses that she's running. She does too Nutrition RX, which is an in-person dietary consulting company. And then she also runs Prosper Nutrition, an online nutrition certification where she helps gym owners, coaches bring nutrition coaching into their business. And this episode, though, was a little bit different. We got a little bit of an update on kind of how Prosper is doing, where they've come in the last 6 months. But then we also talk about some things where we've maybe changed our mind on over the last 10 years. Jen's been in the industry for over 13 years. And we go on some really cool tangents of how to really make business work in our lives. So Jen is an amazing speaker. She brings a ton of insight and she really thinks deeply about how she operates. And I think you're going to get a ton of value out of this episode. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this episode with Jennifer Broxterman. Jennifer Broxterman, welcome back to the Coach Catalyst podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. We always have the best conversations.
I know, this is awesome. It's always good to catch up, and many times I use the podcast as a way to just catch up with my friends and see what's going on in their lives, and other people can learn too. So this is going to be fun. So if you haven't listened to the first episode with Jen, go back in our archives. It's really early on where we kind of went through Jen's entire journey. So this podcast is going to be a little bit different, where we're going to kind of get an up-to-date feel on where things are going, because you've got a new business. It's still new and what's going on there. And then we've got some interesting things to talk about as well. So Jen, give us just kind of the quick overview. So Prosper Nutrition, give us the quick elevator pitch on what Prosper Nutrition is doing in the industry.
Yeah, so it is a nutrition certification that is totally meant to serve gym owners and their teams of coaches. So I've been an affiliate owner for 16 years with my husband. We ran a slam dunk nutrition program out of our own facility. But what really set our nutrition program apart is we did a lot more motivational interviewing and gamification, and that really helped to change behavior. And we were a lot less on the nutrition challenges at the new year, or here's your macros, here's your meal plan, and did a lot more habit-based coaching, even using Coach Catalyst to support the work we were doing. And so what I now do is I help gyms who either have a non-existent program get their nutrition program off the ground, or if they have a sort of semi-established program, but it's gotten stale. I find that's what's happened in many gyms is they have a nutrition presence, but it's just very flat. Is we kind of reinvigorate some life into it and help their coaches gain more confidence and skills to go out and deliver year-round amazing nutrition coaching. So that's what Prosper is all about.
I love it. So when we talked, I don't know, it's been probably 6 months, maybe 9 months with the first episode, Prosper was really just in its infancy. And so fast forward us 6-9 months, how has the business changed? What do you feel good about? What hasn't worked well in the last 6 months? Give me the update there.
Well, my biggest accomplishment is always my students' success. If they're succeeding, I feel like as a mentor, as a coach, I went and did my job. It's almost like raising kids in a way where you want to send them out into the nutrition coaching world and you want to see them fly. You don't want to see them flop. So for instance, we are not even 1 year old yet. We started last May of 2022. And I was just texting with one of the students and I was like, hey, you're about 10 months in. Give me the update. He's like, Jen, I've sold $92,000 in nutrition coaching sales since I signed up for your Prosper cert. He's like, I have never gotten a return on investment like that anywhere else. I was working with another gym and they're like, Jen, we're 6 months in and my goal was to be at 20 clients by a year. We have 19 steady paying nutrition clients in our gyms, in our gyms books. We got there faster. Thank you for believing in us. So those are the kind of stories that make me the happiest and the proudest of like what's been happening the last year. Is we've got this great network. We've had almost close to 300 gyms now, which is really exciting. Go through it, and then their coaches feel more confident, and then they're seeing way better results for their clients. And so I love the ripple effect of gym owners are making more money, coaches are being paid better per hour, and are really enjoying the diversity in their job than just being a fitness coach. But ultimately, the end user, the client who's getting coached this style of nutrition coaching is just, getting healthier and happier. And that just makes me so happy and proud.
Right.
So I think those are our biggest wins to celebrate.
That's awesome. So like any business, not everything is green pastures and roses. And so what has been one of the biggest struggles that you've had or challenges that you've had over the last 6 months since the last time we talked as you're trying to grow this business?
Right. I'd say the biggest challenge is as the owner, I'm going to have full responsibility fall back on my shoulders, and it's being spread too thin. I think any owner, especially an owner that's starting a second location, a second business, is like, oh, I know how to own a business. So two, how much harder could that be? Not realizing that having my focus divided between Nutrition RX, which is my own nutrition practice, and I have a great team of dietitians who work for me, but then also the attention and time that I needed to have a second business get off the ground, is because my first business is just booming and we have more business than I know what to do with. Often that's the urgency where my attention went. And then because Prosper was important but not urgent, where does that fall on the to-do list? A little bit lower down. So I realized a few months ago, I had to make a pivot if I was going to give Prosper the fair chance it deserved. So two things came about from that decision. One is I hired really good help. So I had a few mishires and missteps in the last year where I was really searching for that great marketing support. But there's a lot of scamminess. There's a lot of lack of value when you get into the marketing field, not to insult anyone who is a professional marketer, but definitely I made some missteps. I was just, like you hire and then fire quickly if you need to. And so I had a few of those where it just wasn't the right fit. But I finally found a really great marketer, and that's been going super well. And then the other thing I decided to invest in myself and go big is I took a leap of faith and I hired an in-house videographer. So now I have a videographer who's on my team 2 days a week, full time, like full on employees. So excited to have them. Tried to work, international VAs, but again, had some issues with delegation and work quality. And so I've just been so pleased to find these two awesome humans I've been searching for. And now we are more like a media, content rolling machine where I can sort of have the vision and then these two can execute. And so I feel like I can take a sigh of relief that what I envisioned to come out of the content creation is finally getting done. So like our YouTube channel is getting like 10 new subscribers almost every day, where my email is just like another subscriber. I've been speaking really internationally the last few months. So I was in Berlin, Germany back in December. I'm going to Stockholm, Sweden at the end of this month. So there's a lot of cool opportunities now coming my way. And now that I feel like I have the right people, where I stumbled for 6 to 9 months of not having the right support, that was where I kept falling flat on my face. So I don't know if you can relate to that. You're a multi-business owner yourself. Have you ever had patches where you're trying to get something off the ground and you just keep tripping and stumbling?
Like if you haven't had things like that, like you're not in the game. You're doing something else, right? And so, but the magic is when you have the right people in the right seats, like how much better business is and how much fun business is. Yes. And the flip side of it, when you don't have the right people or you don't have people in the seats that you need people in, how frustrating and challenging business can be. And I think the people that continue to have businesses are the ones that are willing to ride out those valleys, because they understand that, if I just find the right person, or if I keep searching, like for you, you could have just said, all right, screw it, right? Like I've tried a couple of agencies, like it hasn't worked out. They haven't been able to deliver that way that I want to. Okay, I'm just going to try and do it all myself. Like I'm going to, I'm going to try and burn it at both ends. And then ultimately, like you end up disliking the thing that you created in the first place. Right. And so I think for you deciding that I'm not going to let these little barriers, stop me from searching, And then my next question from that is like, how did you find those people? Was it connections? Was it just like, I mean, how did you ultimately get them into your circle?
Yeah. So connections are everything. I think this might be a Tony Robbins quote, but it's always stuck with me. So much of your worth can be connected to your network, the good people that you know in your life. And so this is a great example for you coaches out there to just keep putting yourself online and sort of updating people what you're up to. So this is a coach who I knew through another organization. And what he just did on his Facebook timeline is he's like, hey, world, don't know if you've been following my story. A couple of years ago, I sort of broke off and started to do my own thing. Here's some projects that I'm up to, but just wanted to give you guys an update of like where things are at. And I was like, he kind of sounds like he's doing what I've been looking for. And so I reached out to this individual, and this is a perfect story that he wasn't the right fit, but then he introduced me to someone else in the world I would have never known if it wasn't for his connection. So we met, talked about the project, the scope, what I was looking for. And he's like, oh, I love the sounds of this. I don't have the bandwidth, but I'm so glad you reached out. And he's like, ironically, I have a great friend that does something very similar to what I do, is looking for a change in organization, getting a little bit stale with where he is. And he is actively, but very quietly looking for another person to, kind of jump ship and jump on board with something different. He literally has the skill set of what you're looking for. Would you like me to make an intro? And I was like, yes. Like, do you want me to pay you a finder's fee? Like, I have been searching the world for this person that I really need to fill this important seat on the bus. And so because he did that Facebook post, and then I took a chance and reached out to him, and he said no in the most professional way possible and made the intro. That's how I found my marketer. And then my videographer was one of those like Facebook posts like, hey world, does anyone know a great videographer that they've worked with? And I found that because I was using these very international virtual assistants that weren't being vetted, and I just had to trust a very large organization, I wasn't always getting the quality that I wanted. But by asking a friend of like, who's worked with someone where you're willing to put your name to the referral, by asking, it's kind of like, do you know a guy? Do you know a guy? Do you know a guy?
Right.
I think John Goodman has a book called Vironomics, and the goal is to be known as the guy or the girl. So I think for any of our listeners who are self-employed or own businesses, it's a great reminder to just put a little update out there of like, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is what I'm working on. Because if that guy hadn't put that post up, I don't think I would have been connected to the right people. So kind of serendipitous, but also some strategy there and how he marketed himself. And then I jumped right on that.
Right. And if you're not taking action in it as well, like it doesn't matter what's going on. But I think this idea of kind of the point of it is just letting people know what you're doing. And if you need help, letting people know that you need help, people in your circle, because they might know someone that eventually connects you with the right person. I think sometimes as business owners, we just try and we go heads down and it's like, okay, I'm just going to figure this out. Like, how do I figure this out? And we try and put more oomph behind it, and we'll do more rather than being like, hey, here's where I'm at. Here's where I need help. Who's out there? And just kind of hope that the universe starts to come together and put you in connection with the right people.
Absolutely.
And it may not happen every time, right? But if you don't do it, you know your answer, right?
Right.
So, that's awesome. And so what do you see? I mean, so you've seen some nice growth over the last 6 months. You feel like the right people are in the right seats on the bus.
My favorite thing about Coach Catalyst.
One of the things I love most about Coach Catalyst.
There are lots of things I love about Coach Catalyst.
And the reason why I love Coach Catalyst is that
the accountability off the back of that
is simplicity.
The support is amazing.
It allows me to give so much of me to my clients.
The drip feeding of content.
I can schedule lessons for my clients in advance.
Game changer for freeing up time.
It gives me my time back.
It's so simple and so easy.
Hi, I'm Kane, the founder of Coach Catalyst, the #1 accountability and communication software on the market today. We help coaches just like you keep their clients accountable and scale their business beyond what they've ever been able to do before. So if that sounds like something you want, let's take a look at how we can help. So Coach Catalyst was built on the 4 C's of coaching. Those are content, communication, community, and consistency. So for content, you need to go beyond just workouts and deliver the whole experience for the client so they get the results they deserve. For communication, you need to own your communication. If you don't own the communication, coaching, you don't own the client. So make sure you stop texting clients and use a centralized platform. For communities, get off of Facebook groups and take ownership over your social group with Coach Catalyst communities. And for consistency, the foundation of all results for clients, we took the best-selling book Atomic Habits and built all these fundamentals right within our app that's going to guarantee to get your clients the best results possible. If you want to start using the 4 C's with your clients, content, connection, community, and consistency, make sure you run over to Coach Catalyst and start a free trial today.
What do you see for the next 6 months then with Prosper Nutrition? Like, what are your big goals with it?
Yeah, so this is a fun and scary, not even that scary, but like a fun risk that I'm taking. So just before we started to record, I had mentioned to you that I'm doing something I've never done in my professional career. I have booked myself a 6-month sabbatical starting July 1st to December 31st. And what exactly does that mean? Because you're like, haha, Jen, you're a workaholic. What do you mean you're taking a break? Like, I know you're probably not going to. But I had to, for me to get to the next level of where I want to take Prosper, nothing changes if nothing changes. And so I'm a really good dietitian. I'm an in-demand nutrition coach. I have a super long wait list. I'm beyond grateful that I have raving fans who want to work with me. But at the moment, I'm still trading time for money. And if I want to get to that next level of scale and impact and changing the world that I really think I can with this nutrition certification, my weekly schedule has to look completely different. So the first thing I have to do is I have to wipe the calendar clean. And so the only way I could sort of pull myself out of the day-to-day is I basically had to make myself completely unavailable to my long-term dependable clients. And, I've got plans in place for their care to be transferred to people on my team, but it was almost like you just have to rip off the Band-Aid and say, like, I'm not going to be available to be the one to work with you. So 6 months, absolutely nothing on the schedule. But what that means is just like a professor takes sabbaticals every few years to research and be creative and to think and to write and to do projects and to travel. That's what I'm giving myself permission for, is I'm going to film a lot of YouTube and put a lot of content out there, partly because I just want to give back to this amazing community of coaches. And then also hike and read books and sleep and do continuing education if I want to, or be unproductive. And that's going to be productive as well. So there's a lot of rest, there's a lot of self-care, and I just need time to think. And some of my favorite big picture thinkers were always so good at protecting time to think. And I just feel like I need an extra long pause. I just want to think and reflect. And I don't know what's going to come out of the 6 months. And I'm so excited I'm not going into it with a rigid plan or goals or expectations. I'm really going to wing it. And I think it's going to be one of the best things I can ever do for myself and my business. So we'll talk maybe again in 6 months, 9 months. And it's going to be a totally different podcast.
Right. I definitely want to have a conversation when you're coming out of this, right?
Yeah.
Is there a level of anxiety around, like, because you're a very driven, you're a very accomplished person, like you get stuff done. And so is there like a low level, because I'm getting a low level anxiety, just like you telling me about this for you. And so is there a level of like anxiety around like, man, I'm just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And
you know what? Weirdly, not at all.
Okay.
Jen of 5 to 8 years ago, yes. Jen that has come through stage 3 ovarian cancer, the pandemic, lockdowns in Canada, being in the gym industry, my husband choosing to sell his gym of 16 years. We sold our multi-million-dollar building. He got into a new industry. I'm resilient. I can also really sit in the unexpected quite comfortably now. And that was a skill I didn't have 5, 8, 10 years ago. My anxiety would get off the charts if I didn't feel like I had everything mapped out and under control and completely planned down to the last T that was going to get crossed. Now, I actually think as an entrepreneur, it's I'm not taking uncalculated risks. I've got enough savings aside that literally the business could make no money and all the bills could still be paid. So I'm well set up to do this. But at the same time, I don't really feel any anxiety because if you look at it very objectively, one, it's a reversible decision. So if things go on fire, I end my sabbatical early, option number one. Option number two is if I get bored, I have a long list of projects I would like to get to. So they're in the queue waiting for me if I need it, but I'm not going in with any pressure to do anything on my list. And I've never had the space to just sort of be free and see what comes out of that freedom. And I am more excited than anxious. Like there really isn't any anxiety. There's just optimism and excitement waiting for me on this other. Like I'm like counting down the days, like, oh man, can't this start on June 1st? Can't this start on May 1st? But I promised myself I'd see our launch through for Prosper. So I'm here in the day-to-day until that's soaring and fine. But I cannot wait. I'm so excited.
I love it. Yeah, that's going to make for a really good podcast when we're going to pencil you in right now so that we get you on right when you come out of that. So that's awesome. I mean, how long have you been in the industry?
13 years.
Okay.
Yeah, 2010.
Right. It was 2010 when you graduated from university?
Yeah. So the way it kind of worked is I finished my undergrad, did a dietetic internship, and then I instantly started my business when I finished and became a dietitian, while also going and doing my master's full time. So I was growing my business from zero while I was also a full-time student. And so I was this race against the clock because my master's took me 2 years to do my master's in foods and nutrition. Right. But by the end, when I was writing my thesis and getting ready to defend my overall project, my business was so busy. What I did is I did a week of writing my thesis, a week of being in private practice, a week of writing my thesis. And so I was like, okay, fine. I guess if I'm not making money and I'm not seeing clients this week, I better not dink around and get what I said I was going to get written for my thesis. So it's a very good way to actually write a thesis without procrastinating is put yourself in a full-time job and put yourself in full-time school and do both. And each week you alternate which activity you focus on. So I gave myself permission to have a rest from writing and I just saw clients. And then I took a rest from working and then just wrote my thesis. And I was like this race against the clock to get into my business full time.
You need a sabbatical. It's going to be good for you.
I need a sabbatical. It's been a long 13 years. Yeah.
As a gym owner, Coach Catalyst is the key to having low turnover. For several years, I struggled and spent 10 to 20 hours a week communicating with clients via phone calls, Facebook Messenger, email, and text messages. I had tried everything to make my life more efficient. I was at my wit's end. And then I found Coach Catalyst. Since starting the software, I have found a life again, and my clients are thanking me for being so involved in their fitness life. I've cut my daily commitment to interacting with over 300 clients to under 15 minutes a day and have streamlined my 6-week challenges. I couldn't recommend it more. I just don't know if I would even be here today if it wasn't for Coach Catalyst. If you don't have an account already, you're missing out and not helping the people you could be.
I love it. So a lot happens in 13 years, right? Many times when we first get into the industry, it's kind of like, I know everything and I'm going to change the world, right? And everyone should listen to everything I say because I just went through 4 years. I've got a master's, I got this or that. But the longer you're in the industry, I think the more we find out there's a whole lot that we don't know. And we get more comfortable with this gray area. Right? If maybe it is a good idea, maybe it's not a good idea. It depends. Like that's usually one of my qualifiers of a good coach is if we ask a question, they don't just answer it with whatever their methodology may be. They're usually like, oh, well, it depends. Can I have some more information? Like what's going on, this or that? And they're kind of taking everything into account and then being able to give the best course of action based upon all the information, not just like, here's the answer that I believe is true and is true for everyone. So what are some things that you maybe have changed your mind about over the last 13 years that would make for a fun discussion?
Yeah. So there's 3 or 4 that come to mind right off the bat. So number 1, I'm going to eat a huge slice of humble pie. And this is so embarrassing to admit, but it's true. So I'm just going to out myself. I came out as a registered dietitian thinking only RDs are the only qualified people in the world to talk about nutrition. Medical doctors? No. Nurse practitioners? No. Heaven forbid a personal trainer, a fitness coach, a wellness coach step on our territory and try to come into our zone and coach nutrition. I'm so mortified to admit this, but I've grown enough and I thankfully came to that realization very early in my career that we need more allies. We need as many boots on the ground helping fight against obesity and chronic disease. And so absolutely, are there zones like medical nutrition therapy and the coaching of complex medical diseases? Yes, dietitians have extra training for that skill set. Are we the only ones who are allowed to coach nutrition? Heck no. Is it illegal for others to coach nutrition? Heck no. Why that was taught to me in school, I equate it to brainwashing. I had to unlearn what was taught in school. And thankfully now I see it in a much more robust way, which is we are a team working together of allies that we each are going to have coordinated roles to help the public eat better. So that's probably number one, but I'm the most embarrassed to admit that that was a very outdated belief when I first started coaching.
Yeah, and it's still, it's gotten better, right? The industry has gotten a lot better, but there's still this, like, everyone is like this, like, scope of practice and make sure you stay in your scope and all of these things. And there is definitely a scope that needs to be respected. And you kind of talked about it a little bit when we get into like medical realm, when we get into diagnosis and disease and a lot of that kind of stuff, like people with the training in that need to handle that. But helping someone eat more vegetables, or like, maybe get a little more protein in their life. Like, I don't know if like that's like necessarily outside of someone's scope, right? It's just helping someone live a good life.
Well, let's put facts on the table. It's not out of scope. So for those coaches that maybe have that person in their ear or just the industry chatter where it's like scope of practice. Right. Like I'm in Facebook groups where that's the first answer people will post when someone's just asking a question to be a better support for someone dealing with something. Is I love the coaches that reach out and they build a network and they're like, hey, I can help with wellness coaching, sleep habits, stress management, better quality food, more veggies, lean proteins, recipe ideas. That's all completely valid scope of practice. Now, again, it depends maybe where you live, where you might have to have like an accredited certification, no different than personal training to be insured and be able to practice as a personal trainer or a fitness coach. So you want to make sure that there's some sort of certification or educational background minimum. But in terms of just offering like guidance and support and wellness from a habit-based behavior change perspective, that is totally within the scope of practice of a helping healthcare or non-healthcare provider. And then just like you said, there might be diagnoses, disease states, medical concerns. Then scope of practice starts to become the referring out. Let me connect you. I've got someone in my network, just like we were talking about a marketing network. I refer all the way out all the time. Like I've got someone who's a great pelvic physiotherapist. It sounds like you'd really benefit from pelvic physio. I know someone that is a great psychologist. You're doing a lot with body image issues and disordered eating. Let me connect you with an amazing therapist or social worker or psychologist in our community. So even people within scope should be referring out. And so I think know your scope, have a great network, but help as much as you possibly can, because there's no harm in making the world a little bit of a healthier place.
Right. And there's no shortage of people that need help at the end of the day. Like, we need all the help we can get.
Dietitians would be the biggest bottleneck in the world because we train people so slowly that if we were the only source of nutrition advice, no one would really get help because there's just so few dietitians out there, like total.
Yeah, I love it. What else you got?
Okay, so that's kind of number one and maybe the most embarrassing thing that I needed to improve my mindset on. The second thing is about how we show up on social media. And so when I went to school, again, maybe I can blame all of this on school, although I don't like to take a victim mentality. I took a communications class that was all about our social media presence. And this is right around the turn when like Facebook was coming out. I think like I'm going to date myself here, but like MySpace was dying. Facebook was becoming a whole big thing. And so we had to take a class on communications about how to present ourselves in interviews, on resumes, on social media, online. And the advice was to be very professional, very neutral, to appeal to everyone. And so that was how I used to write on my blog, on my website. I was so careful on my social media, the way I portrayed myself. And I was very guarded. And it was a real disservice to think like that. And so by trying to be vanilla and appealing to everyone, you appeal to no one. Like I just sat on the fence and was so guarded. And it was just, I was ignored because I didn't have anything interesting to say. I didn't really offer my own thoughts. I sort of very polishedly regurgitated scientific information or what I thought would be helpful information. And it helped no one. So today, the approach I've sort of softened into on my own social media is I try to be authentically me. And what I mean by that is I'm a really healthy person at heart, but I'm also a goofy jockey nerd. That's my personality. I take photos in Care Bear outfits and talk about mindset. I will chop up healthy veggies, but have like a messy bun on a Sunday morning with like sleep crusties in my eyes. Whatever. I'm a pretty, go with the flow kind of girl. So I don't worry so much about being really done up and really perfect all the time. In fact, I think perfection online does damage to our culture. So I'm really mindful to just like show it in the moment unfiltered. If I'm red and sweaty and hot after a workout, sometimes I take post-workout selfies like that. If it's like, messy hair, but I'm chopping veggies and kind of doing some batch cooking. So my love is to role model authentically what healthy real life looks like, but show a range of emotions and not just show only when things are succeeding. I show the hard moments of my life too. And that's been received so well. And my favorite compliment people give me is just how authentic and genuine I seem online, because like who I am online is really who I am with my friends, my family, like privately. So that would be the other thing I've really changed my mind about, is essentially like I pulled the stick out of my butt and relaxed and then just gave myself permission to be me. And I used to be so worried about like, what if the College of Dietitians like oversaw my profile and they deemed I wasn't being professional? Like this is stuff I used to worry about. I obviously don't like overly swear. I'm not like overly sexual or anything crazy online, but I don't worry where I used to worry about how I presented myself. Now I don't. And maybe that's just part of getting older. I care a lot less what people think of me. Like I've got my raving fans and I also probably have people who don't like me, and that's okay. Like I've got nice thick skin.
I love it. So how do you manage the online piece? Because you also live an offline world of running a practice and the prosperous stuff. And so like, do you feel the online piece to be like a burden, or do you feel like I have to post, or do you do it more sporadically and organic, or do you have a strategy behind it?
I can't be anything less than honest. So I will be brutally honest. And I'm sure if I have someone that's like a marketer, they're going to like be like, Jen, this is the worst idea ever, but I'm going to be honest. So my main strategy is what I call post and abandon, meaning I don't actually really enjoy lurking and scrolling on social media. Weirdly, I actually hate Instagram, but I have Instagram. I use Instagram. So what does post and abandon mean? I take a photo, I post it online when I'm in the mood. I write up a blog post or a little post on the spot with like whatever's in my head and my heart, log in, post it, close Instagram, and I might not open it for 2 weeks, or I might open it in 2 hours or 2 days. I almost never scroll and look at anyone else. So my apologies, world. I probably come off super aloof because I don't like other people's posts. I don't even really know how Instagram works. Like I don't even know how to like get into fully reels and save video. Like I'm like embarrassingly old on Instagram, but I know how to open it. I know how to add a photo, post it, write a little caption, and then I close it. And I don't look at it till whenever the next time is that I feel inspired. Weirdly, thankfully, it doesn't really get my dopamine going. So to me, it's not addicting. Facebook, I know I'm going to be old. I use Facebook a little bit more. It's easier to like send private messages. And again, like I like to work off my laptop. So I enjoy that platform more because I can do it from a computer.
Right.
But again, I sort of post, I use it for private communication, and then I close it. And sometimes I spend some time on it. Sometimes I go days or even like a couple of weeks without really being overly active. So that's been my strategy. Probably really the wrong one, probably unprofessional. But because it's authentic, every time I post, there is no calculated strategy to it.
Right.
It comes off as genuine, but am I consistent? Heck no. So I would call it like sloppy chaos that's authentic with a post and abandon back end. But my mental health is great. I can definitely attest to that.
I love it.
But that's my real social media strategy.
Hey, like it's good to know, because I think sometimes we just assume that there's this really calculated strategy behind, and
couldn't be further from the truth.
Right. And so like, I think it's good to know where you're out there, you're putting yourself out there, but you're not maybe getting overwhelmed and having to do it at a consistent interval and all the other things that come along with it. So
yeah. I'm curious. What's yours? I'm so curious to know what your strategy is.
My team gets so mad at me because I do not utilize social media at all. Like most of my world is kind of like offline, right? Like we have our gyms, and so like I'm in person talking to people, and like our team is all digital with Coach Catalyst, and so we're engaging a lot there. And sometimes I'm just like, if I don't feel like I have anything of value to add, like. Yes. You know, like I just don't want to put noise out to put noise out. And so, so my stuff has been sporadic. I've tried to do it more. I actually just got an Instagram account. Got one. I've not made a post yet.
I highly recommend posting and abandoning. It's great for mental health.
So I haven't made my first post yet, but I do have an Instagram account.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens. It'll probably be just like a picture of my kid doing something dumb. Which is like a daily occurrence. But so we'll see. So like I'm very much an offline person. And so the social media game, and me and my team would be the first to admit, is just really a lot more challenging for me. So I have to be very cognizant of it. And it's almost like I almost have to set a reminder to do it sometimes, because it's important for other things that I'm involved in. But yeah.
Well, you know what? Here's a great question to you and to our listeners. I love this all the time. I always ask myself this. Is it a real problem? So if I take the 10,000 foot hot air balloon view of my life, if I look at it on my deathbed, is it a problem that I don't have a calculated social media strategy? Well, I would argue that my first business is booming and I have more demand than I even know what to do with. And I'm constantly in a staff shortage. So right now, the other strategies of word of mouth, great client service, Google reviews seems to be doing a good enough job that even without consistency to social media, there's really nothing broken or a problem in the first business. Would it help the second business grow a little bit faster? Yeah, arguably it would. But at the same time, I know what my enough is. Like I have a roof over my head, not in debt, things are going really well. And that little bit more time glued to a screen where I could choose a hike in the woods or a workout in my gym or getting an extra hour of sleep or the things that offline make me a really happy person. Is it really a problem? No. Could it be better? Sure. But there's always a trade-off, right? And so if the trade-off is a little bit more anxiety and mental health disturbances and a little bit less sleep or less time hiking or less time at the gym, maybe actually more consistency online created an offline problem that I'm not willing to trade, for that little bit more online. And I mean, we're going to have to get 10, 15, 30 years into the future. I think we're going to be looking at screen time a lot differently. And the addiction of our phones, the addiction of social media is going to be a huge, even bigger topic of conversation than it is today. And so I already feel my brain remodeling with my iPhone and my BlackBerry back in the day coming into my life from growing up without phones. So I'm trying to do everything I can to protect my brain against the full deep addiction of like, I can't function without it. So sometimes I think it's like, I'm probably sound old, but like good to fight the good fight against too much social media and screen time use, because I don't know, being in control of my flow state and my thinking and my creativity, it's really important to me. And I have to actually stay offline to have my brain work the way that I want it to. Otherwise, I just do shallow, meaningless, secular kind of work.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting, right?
I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. Yeah.
I mean, that's where the world is going, right? The world is going, like, this is like social media is a part of marketing. It is a real thing. It's probably something if we're in technology or we're working with people outside of, 5 miles around our spot, like we need to be involved in some capacity. And so it's like trying to find that balance of, I need to be involved in this as a channel, but I can't let it kind of change everything about how I'm operating to an extent.
Yeah.
Because these things are manufactured to be addicting, to give us those little dopamine hits, like the chimes, and like it's manufactured to make us want to come back. And so being aware of that and finding a balance between using it, but not using it too much where it turns into something, I think that's a really challenging balance to come up with.
Yeah, hence my strategy. Post, abandon, post when I feel like it, write authentically, then shut it down and get right off and get back into the offline world. So it's a strategy of sorts, but not the way you would actually think of social media strategy. But that's the long answer to how I use social media.
It's the unstrategy strategy. I like it.
Yeah.
There was right. There was something that you did mention during that I think it's worth kind of riffing on a little bit. And it's this concept of enough. Right. And so enough, but then pair that with a very driven person. Right.
Yeah.
And so how do you manage this idea of enough? Right. I've got the baseline of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, met, shelter, food, companionship, all of that, like solid. Right. But then also this drive to be good, to be great, to do more, to help more. And like, I just want to know your thoughts on that aspect. So I'm just curious.
Let's nerd out. Well, Trevor, I'm so glad you asked. Okay, but here's what I really think about. I think about the words mastery and excellence. What I set on the side are goals and outcomes. So here's what I mean by that breakdown. When I think about showing up every day, I'm searching for growth, mastery, and excellence. How can I get better at a skill? How can I get better at being a YouTuber? How can I get better as being a great dietitian? How can I be a better motivational interviewer? How can I be a better, more interesting podcaster? Whatever the case might be. So I just have a lot of fun learning new skills, building skills, and being more excellent and developing mastery. And so I think about my day or my week in the idea of a system. What needs to be in that regular system to have a productive, fulfilling career? So I need to have self-mastery over like time management. I need to be able to get into flow states where I'm creative and working and doing deep work. I need to do continuing education to keep learning and leveling up my skills. I need to keep reading books and eating well and being active, because those are all like primary nourishments. So I think about like what we put in our body is almost like a secondary nourishment. But what I put in my brain, who I talk to, who I surround myself with, the environments I place myself in. So I focus more on those conditions of like the environment, my day-to-day habits, and my mindset. And so I am not at all greedy or impatient, chasing a goal that's anchored to a timeline of achievement. If I make a lot of money or not, like I'm doing the right steps and it seems to be working out. I'm eating well and being active, so my body composition feels healthy and I'm on track. Do I define it by what I actually weigh on the scale? No, because I don't have full control over that. Do I look at what I make every month or every week or every day? Not so much. But do I see I have a full calendar? Are my employees really fulfilled and happy working for me? Do I enjoy my workday when I get out of bed and I'm excited to go to work? So by focusing on excellence and mastery, but totally like scissoring and uncoupling that to the outcome and the goal, it takes away the pressure. It takes away the judgment. It takes away the pressure cooker of like, you must accomplish this by this time or you failed. Because I can never really fail. All I'm doing is I'm growing and getting better. And then I just recalibrate and just check that I'm on course. Am I feeling healthy? Am I feeling happy? Are the people around me feeling healthy and happy? And, there's love and joy and positivity in our lives. And if that's happening, I'm good. So that's a really weird way that I've come up with enough.
Do you feel like that is something, call it a strategy for lack of a better term, strategy that you've kind of honed over the years? Is that something that's maybe innate to you and kind of your personality and how you approach life?
No, that's a great question. I would say honed is the answer. Because my nature, like my parents are both hard drivers. I'm a firstborn, like achieve. I'm like, I want to win all the scholarships. I want to win all the athletic awards. I want to get the best grades. And so I was always chasing like the best. But the problem with the best is depending on what pool you put yourself in, you can always be the big fish or the little fish, and you could always be not enough when you compare. Mm-hmm. And so then I stopped comparing to others. I was like, okay, I figured this out. I'm not comparing to others, but I was comparing to myself and the standards I'd set for myself. So then there's still an opportunity to fail or fall short. So then when you just scrub away all comparison, you set yourself free. It's awesome. And it came from almost out of a necessity. I had a really low drop in burnout and energy after I finished my master's and working full time and starting my first company. And so it was like a book I read. I can't remember even the book today, but it was like Build a Life, Not a Resume. And what I was chasing was resume builders because it served, like if I don't judge myself and I think about it very logically, it served me at that stage in my late teens and early 20s of like, well, high grades get you a scholarship and gets you off to university with a full ride paid for. Being a really good athlete gets you on the varsity team. That is a source of like pride and physical prowess that, again, you're very proud of. And so I just chased accolade after accolade after accolade to my own physical and mental detriment. And then I was like squashed on the road, like pancake flattened. And I was like, I can't keep doing this to myself. This feels awful. Like I have this amazing list, but I feel awful. And so I started to look at, okay, like minimalism, letting things go, not only physical possessions, but letting go of obligations, letting go of relationships, letting go of, commitments that no longer serve me. And then I look at it now like a winding river of, I don't fully know where the river's going to go. Sometimes you paddle hard. Sometimes you ride the current and the rapids. But to think you have full control over what's going to happen in your life, well, stage 3 ovarian cancer at age 34 sure proved that wrong. Like regional athlete in CrossFit, ate so well as a dietitian, was so good with my self-care, still got a really terrible illness and probably due more to stress and pressure than it did to lifestyle choices. So that was a real wake-up call to just look at what is enough. Because sometimes more striving is very unhealthy. It doesn't actually become healthy past a certain point. So I'd say quite honed. And then books. Oh my gosh, I love books. And weirdly, one of my favorite genres of books to help me understand enough, concentration camp and Holocaust survival books of people that just had resiliency and grit and perseverance and mindset and refused to be the victim and are true survivors. That kind of stuff makes me feel so grateful for the life I get to live today. And if I'm ever, in a bad headspace, weirdly, sometimes reading material like that helps me really have gratitude and find like peace with like what I have in my life.
So a man search for meaning is a big one, that's probably the most popular that's kind of come out of that time. Are there any other ones that you can just kind of like think of off the top of your head that have maybe been impactful for you?
Yeah, that's one of the first ones. The other one is kind of a classic that comes to mind because I read it so young in school and then have reread it. But the Diary of Anne Frank, right? Like just thinking about like all those people in hiding, trying to live together, getting on each other's nerves, have to be so quiet during the day. That was always another one that has left a really big impact on me. So those are probably my two favorites, but I've read lots in that genre over the years.
As a coach that runs challenges, I needed my life back. I had stuff all over the place. A Facebook group for community interaction, Google Sheets for check-ins and measurements, and was drowning in email communication. As my challenges grew past just a handful of people, I started to notice clients were falling through the cracks. I began researching virtual assistants because I just couldn't manage it all. And truthfully, the client experience was going down the drain. Luckily, a friend recommended Coach Catalyst and just told me to trust her. I'm sure glad I did. Now I can run my challenges with 2 or 200 clients with just a few clicks. The lessons get delivered on the right days, the accountability happens automatically, and most importantly, the communication is all in one spot. I even created 2 new challenges from the Coach Catalyst library. Best part, didn't have to change a thing. I used to spend 15 minutes just trying to log into all the apps I needed. Now I log in and my dashboard tells me who needs a shout out and who needs a kick in the butt in about 15 seconds. I feel like a huge weight is lifted off of my shoulders. I can finally spend my time coaching again instead of worrying about all the admin work. Do your brain a favor and get Coach Catalyst.
And sometimes it just kind of gives us perspective, right, on where we're at, and even just living in the developed world, having the opportunities that we've had, having food on the table every night and a place to go home to, people that love us. It just kind of brings back perspective on, okay, maybe that thing in my business isn't as big of a deal as I'm making it out to be in my head.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm going to stay with this just a little bit longer, and then we'll move on. So you were an athlete, right? So in athletics, we use a scoreboard to see whether or not we're winning or losing. So have you abandoned the idea of like a scoreboard, or is your scoreboard maybe a little bit more subjective?
Ooh, so this is a very interesting answer, because I do actually have, it's like a non-scoreboard scoreboard, and the most like Jen answer that it could be. So let me actually find it on my computer right now. And it was something I wrote in 2016, and the title is called My Roadmap and Values. So this is right around the time I was doing a lot of soul searching around enough and letting go of competition. Now, what's interesting as a coach, like the curious detective in me, is like this was correlated to the year that I gave up training for CrossFit regionals, like the super regionals. And I was just pretty beaten up and, broken and just really tired from 4 or 5 years of super competitive CrossFit. So I was like, I need to make a change. And so I sat down one day and I wrote out my roadmap and values. And this sits beside my bed. And I kid you not, I read this daily. So let me read you my roadmap and values, and tell me if this answers your question about the scoreboard. So it's divided into 5 different categories: mental health, physical health, relationships, personal improvement, and financial health. So under mental health, I wrote, feel happy and healthy most of the time. Feel engaged with my work, but not overly stressed. Know what I'm doing is making a positive impact in this world. Under physical health, I have regular exercise. So go to CrossFit 4 to 6 times a week. Do other types of movement like weekend hikes with my husband Dave and our dog Carly, yoga, cross-country skiing, downhill skiing, house cleaning, gardening, and leisurely walks outdoors. Have few illnesses and sleep 8 hours a night. So that was all under physical health. Under relationships, my roadmap and values are have a happy, loving, supportive, and fun marriage, be close with my family, regular visits, surround myself with inspiring people who bring me up, discuss big ideas, challenge me to grow, and who love and support me. And finally, under relationships, I have let go of negative individuals, forgive and release bullies. Under personal improvement, my roadmap is to always seek to be better, but also be content with who I am right now. Have lots of reading and space for self-development, and work with a coach or mentor in business and in life. And then finally, under financial health, I have always live within my means, and then I have a savings goal, but be low key about it. And as part of being low key, I won't say what that number is because the number doesn't matter. Have money that works for me, even on days I don't work. So my dad always taught me the importance of investing. Have few assets that drain my bank account, and work a 6-hour productive workday. That is my roadmap. So there's no timeline, there's no concrete numbers, but what I do is I check in with that list often. And when I don't feel great, usually 1 or 2 jump out at me like stepping on a piece of glass stuck in your foot. And you're like, that's why I feel terrible. That important value I'm not honoring. And then when I look at what feels out of alignment, this brings me back into alignment.
So that's
my scoreboard. My non-scoreboard scoreboard.
Well, I think that's awesome. Like, you've really kind of defined the important things to you in different areas of your life. And you've given a good overview of what success looks like in that. Will it be perfect every time? Will you have some weeks where maybe you only get 6 hours of sleep versus 8 hours? Probably.
Yeah.
But it at least gives you a framework to come back to figure out, okay, I feel off. Okay, let me just remind myself of what's important to me. And so did you do that when you were in a mental state of like, I feel really good in here? Or was it in a mental state of, I don't feel the best and these are the things that I think are going to make me feel good?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was probably two. I think I did it when I was in a poor mental state, not in a good mental state. When I really just needed to sit down and have quiet and reflect and soul search. Why don't I feel good? And what do I think my intuition is telling me will pull me back into alignment? And so, this list hasn't changed a whole lot. I mean, I probably CrossFit one less day a week and do a little bit more hiking and yoga than I did back then. But that feels in alignment with my roadmap and my values. So this list has served me very, very well. And that's why like us being on this podcast is totally in my values and alignment. Like I have no expectation of what will come out of this because nothing needs to come out of this. I'm chatting with someone I respect and admire, and we're talking about important big ideas, and nothing makes me happier than what we're doing right now.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's great. I know we're on a little bit of a time crunch today, and we could literally make this podcast 3 hours long if we needed to Joe Rogan style it, but it's a good thing we have a hard stop because it forces us to be concise and get to the point, right?
Yes.
So there's some fun things that are happening for you in the near future. So tell me a little bit about what's happening with Prosper here.
Oh, I'm so excited. So I'm finally doing it up right as it deserves. And we are doing a really big launch this May. So we have sort of 3 enrollment periods throughout the year: spring, so May time, fall, September, and then early in the new year, January. And so we have a great expanded team of mentors. We've just opened up our waitlist to the public to get early access to when we open the doors. And we are taking on our next large cohort of gyms and personal trainers and nutrition coaches and wellness professionals to allow them to go through the certification, get the one-on-one mentoring, all the resources. So that is coming up in the next few weeks, starting on May the 2nd to May 11th. And then I'm super pumped because I'm going to be flying to Sweden at the end of this month just to keep talking about habit-based nutrition coaching and motivational interviewing within fitness facilities. Because I love anyone who is a fitness entrepreneur who is not only helping the physical activity profile of their clients, but is a more well-rounded wellness coach who's also helping in the mindset, the sleep, the stress, and the nutrition part. So I just want to help as many people who are in the fitness space become amazing at nutrition coaching and motivational interviewing. So that is my focus for this entire next month, is to serve all those students in the best way that I can.
I love it. Now, because this podcast is a little bit about like pulling back the curtain and looking behind the scenes of things, you didn't always do this kind of, call it deadline driven model, or like, hey, we open up a cohort and run everybody through together. Like when you kind of first started, it was like, hey, if someone's interested, let's sign them up right now. Yeah. What made you decide to go away from the kind of like a la carte, sign up whenever you want, to the cohort model, deadline driven model? Because there are coaches that run businesses, and I'm just curious on your thought process behind that.
And I guess like my one business is year round, evergreen, kind of sign up when you're ready. It serves both sides a little bit better to do it this way, at least with a certification. So it allows me to be a lot more focused and supportive when a lot of students are onboarding together, because a lot of the times they have the same questions at the same time. And that support, I can really open up my schedule and they can get the fastest response and the most amount of support when they need it. So it allows us to really cushion and pad what they want. But for their sake, I think, again, it's that idea of important but not urgent. So a lot of the owners I was speaking to were like, oh yeah, this is like totally on our priority list. I'm just trying to get my team in order, or I've just got to get through this next fire that I'm fighting. And so what I kept hearing is it was really important, but because it was sort of available anytime, it never became urgent. But suddenly by introducing the deadline, it helped them light the fire that they needed under their butt to be like, okay, I'm going to pull together, got my hiring done, got the team member in place that needed to be on the seat on the bus. I've been meaning to fill for months and I just haven't gotten around to it. So again, those gyms that we saw who signed up in our January cohort, they got through it so much faster because there was a bit of a time pressure for them to be like, hey, we want you graduated and wrapped up in 1 to 3 months. This course is 18 hours. We know you can do it in this quarter. Let's set a Q1 goal that you're going to have a nutrition program by the time you come out the door 3 months from now. And so I think actually weirdly stamping a deadline, but of course they still have longer if they need the longer, it helped them achieve the next level of what they wanted to accomplish with their business. So it felt in alignment to do it that way. It felt like I was doing it from a place of integrity, not like a sleazy, salesy sort of marketing tactic.
Well, and there's a lot of takeaways from that too. And any coaches that are listening and how you run your own business, right? There are multiple ways to do it. We have the evergreen when someone's ready, you're going to take them on, or there's also the kind of deadline cohort model, which serves a lot of purposes and actually sometimes just helps people get out of their own way. And so It's like, we know we need to do this, right? And it's just, there's always fires to put out. There's always other things to do. But sometimes when I have that, okay, I got to do it. And we see it all the time with our gyms when we run challenges. Like people just decide, okay, like I'm just going to do it. Like I know I've needed to make a change, but this is kind of that starting point I need to get the ball rolling. And sometimes that's all they need is just to get it rolling, build a little bit of momentum, and then they can find some more success. Do we want people to just like do challenge after challenge and then they do the challenge and then fall off? No, that's not. But that challenge can be the stepping stone they need to find some momentum. And then that gives us the opportunity to help coach them on, we like the dial process that we learned from PN of like, hey, sometimes you can dial it up to a 9. Other times we're going to be dialed back to a 3. But we never turn it off. And so we're always kind of somewhere on that dial. But having that deadline can get people out of their own way. And it can be a good strategy if maybe you're having trouble getting people to sign up for stuff. Like, try a deadline and see what happens. So there's a lot of good models.
And curious scientists, like try experiments, right? We tried an evergreen and that went okay. And then we tried the deadline model, the cohort model, and that went a little bit better. Now it could have just been correlated with time. So the curious scientist meme is like, is this just a time variable or is it the model variable, right? Let's nerd out. But at the same time, like without expectation, I'm just trying new things to see which system fits right today. So I think for coaches, just don't overthink it. Try something, get started, take that action. You can always adjust your plan as your business evolves. So that's sort of what Prosper is going through right now. And it's been really fun to let it evolve organically and naturally the way that the business needs to grow. So feels good.
I love it.
Yeah, don't stress out so much about being perfect.
I love it. So was it May 2nd through May 11th is when the next cohort is open?
Exactly. Unless you're on the wait list, then you get early access before we open up our spots to the general public.
Awesome. And are you only taking on a specific number of kind of coaches?
Yeah. So we're going to be taking on 30 gyms in total. So we kind of count each gym as a unit. So you can sign up as a solo coach, or we have a small group program for 2 to 4 coaches for one price. So it allows you to really cut the price if you're going to be signing up and certifying multiple coaches together. So we count each gym that signs up as one of our spots. So we have 30 spots available for this cohort that we'll be training.
Cool. I love it. And if someone decides that this isn't the right time for me, your next cohort opens when?
Send us a message. So you can get on the wait list on our website. It's www.prospernc.com, short for Prosper Nutrition Coaching. Our email pretty much matches that. So it's info@prospernc.com, or you can send us a DM on Instagram. I may or may not log in for a couple days, heads up, but it is @prosper_NC. And I do go in and clear it out and check it, but maybe not daily, just as a heads up.
Just curious from my standpoint, do you have a personal Instagram and a business Instagram, or do you just do it all under Prosper?
I do and I don't. So I have an @nutrition_RX, which is for like my first business, but it's truly bled 50-50 between Jen Broxterman personally and the business. Right. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. I don't really care because it's not really broken. Like I said earlier, it's not a 50-year-out problem that I'm on my deathbed being like, I made a terrible, terrible decision leading business and personal. And even in Prosper, I use the Prosper_NC Instagram more so for this nutrition certification, but I bleed some personal stuff into it too. Right. So far, my marketer hasn't scolded me a whole lot, so I'll just keep going with it until I'm, I guess, in a whole lot of trouble. But it doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
Right. I love it. What was the website again?
prospernc.com.
Cool. I love it, Jen. Well, this has been a pleasure, as it always is, and we'll make sure we connect back again when you're done with sabbatical and see what kind of see where you're headed next. Really.
Love it. Thanks so much for having me. Always fun to talk, Trevor.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Coach Catalyst podcast. If you are a coach looking to do more for your clients than just workouts, give Coach Catalyst a test drive. Try it for 14 days. Jump on call with your personal strategy coach, Ashley, and see how easy technology can be, all for free. Tell them Trevor sent you. Until next time, keep changing lives.